Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting into day 23 of the Karen Reed trial. Shout out to NBC 10 Boston for the recap.
You've never been one to follow the herd, so why dress like everyone else? Enter Dry Fire. FR clothing made from high-performance fabrics. Innovative designs engineered for comfort and safety. No matter what your mission is. All day, every day. Dry Fire. Own every mission.
You out without knowing if you want to go to college or not.
More than $60,000 raised for college by strangers online, moved by his work ethic, moving Michael and his mom to tears.
I was thinking about taking the gap year because I ain't looking at the money for school.
But now, from Burger King to a college dream.
I feel like amazing because I've watched videos of this happen and I never think it happened to me. And
I am so thankful it happened to me.
yes.
Thanks to a whopper of a gift for a job. Well done. Priscilla Thompson, NBC News.
And that is Nightly News for this Thursday. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Legacy isn't handed down. It's carried forward.
Tom Yamas is there to start us off tonight.
And from one era to the next, trust is the anchor. For NBC Nightly News, I'm Tom Galvis. Starting Monday on NBC.
The prosecution has rested their case in the Karen Reed murder trial. Did they deliver on promises made in opening statement?
We'll look into how the prosecution performed and what may come next with the defense. Join us tonight with NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos at 7.
Today's kids are glued to their devices. They've traded FaceTime for FaceTime. And something's off. They're living in an online world that we parents can't see into. Aura gives us visibility into that online world and works like an early warning system to tell us if something seems off. Finally, the tool we need. Learn more at aura.com.
You're watching NBC 10 Boston. News worthy of you.
You're on the Commonwealth arrests.
Tonight, the prosecution rests its case after days of testimony from a crash reconstruction expert.
Dr. Welcher, you are awesome.
Oh my God, thank you.
Has the prosecution
Really bad.
accomplished all of its goals? Our panel weighs in on the prosecution's case and their evidence. Plus, what can we expect when the defense gets their chance starting tomorrow? Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial, starts right now.
The Commonwealth has officially presented all of its evidence, and the defense is up next. Good evening, everyone. I'm JC Monahan.
And I'm Glenn Jones. Today, the prosecution's final witness, crash reconstruction expert Dr. Judson Welcher, concluded his testimony after days on the stand. Let's get you up to speed on the trial so far. Opening statements began a little more than a month ago, April 22nd. Today, the prosecution rested its case. During that time, there were 23 days of testimony and nearly 40 witnesses called to the stand.
Melody Mendez has been keeping tabs on the trial since day one. She joins us live outside Norfolk Superior Court with more on today's major developments. Melody.
Well, JC and Glenn, as you said, for the third day, the prosecution's culminating witness was back on the stand to explain and defend his work. The cross-examination of crash reconstructionist Dr. Judson Welcher picked back up Thursday, with the defense raising a number of concerns. For example, the ring cameras at John O'Keefe's house on Meadows Ave. The images and measurements from those cameras provided the basis for Welcher's conclusions about contact between Reed and John O'Keefe's SUVs. But the cameras have been changed, replaced by a new model, and the location slightly shifted from where it was in 2022 to when Welcher did his testing.
It starts there. And if the starting point is wrong, then
where you go from the starting point is going to be at least potentially wrong, correct?
Potentially.
Alessi also raising concerns about the hydraulics and suspension on Reed's Lexus. Alessi pointing out the vehicle lifts when in drive and drops when stopped, changing the SUV's height by some 4 inches, enough, he says, to throw off their calculations. Welcher acknowledging he doesn't know the suspension height when the car was at Fairview.
So you don't have the suspension height for that key date, do you, sir?
I only have it 2 days later.
In a very brief redirect, just 6 minutes, Prosecutor Hank Brennan addressed each concern, going methodically through Alessi's cross with precision. The ring video.
The fact that the camera was replaced, does that in any way affect your opinion to a reasonable degree of engineering certainty about your conclusions relative to that touching between the cars?
Absolutely not.
The suspension.
Do you have any information that the suspension at any point was changed?
No.
And the alleged bias.
74%. Does that suffer from confirmation bias?
No. That's a direct reading of a sensor. It's objective information.
I thought, could I have run him over? Did he try to get me as I was leaving and I didn't know it?
The prosecution finished by playing one final clip of Reed's interview from a docuseries.
Or what if I ran his foot over? Or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out and or went to care for himself and he threw up or passed out and David said it? Then you have some element of culpability.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth rests.
Reed on her way out of court.
How would you sum up the prosecution's case?
Unjust.
So on her way out of court, Karen Reed did tell us the first witness for the defense, JC and Glenn, will be a man named Matthew DeSabre. He's a digital forensics expert, mechanical engineer for an accident reconstruction firm.
Mallory, that name doesn't sound familiar. Did he testify in the last trial?
No, it shouldn't, Glenn. He did not testify in the last trial, although his name is on the witness list for this trial, so it's not a surprise. Look, I did some research online, and according to his biography on the company's website, he teaches a professional course called, pay attention here, Accessing and Interpreting Heavy Vehicle Event Data Recorders. Those EDRs, that is exactly what we've heard Dr. Judson Welcher speak about for the last 3 days, and Burgess, the witness just before him, so you can see the logic in putting these witnesses back to back on the stand. He is going to start his testimony first thing tomorrow morning. JC, Glenn, back to you.
All right, Melody, we'll see you tomorrow. Joining the conversation now is defense attorney Morgiana Garcia. So I guess we'll start with an overall feel for the prosecution's case. What are your thoughts on how the Commonwealth performed this time around?
So I'll definitely say presentation is definitely a B+. Last time around we had about 60 plus witnesses. This time around we only had 30 plus witnesses, which is huge, right? And it also entices the jury to pay attention more. You're going to have them be more engaged. But I think they failed in some of the experts, right? Some of them had credential issues. Some of them had problems answering the questions directly, so it didn't come off as fluid as it could have. And you really need experts, especially in a murder case, to get the jury to believe your side of the story.
But they do have the chance when the defense puts on their experts to be the ones to cross. We know Hank Brennan is the former defense attorney, and we're told he's very good at it. So could they make more headway? In other words, if they haven't reached the burden yet, could they, throughout the course of the defense's time on the stand?
They could, and also remember the prosecution has the opportunity to do a rebuttal presentation after the defense case,
Okay.
which is an advantage for them. So I think they definitely need to be on their A game, listening to the defense witnesses, but also thinking about what's the rebuttal presentation. Because if they don't use that to their advantage, I think it's a loss. So
I got a feeling that rebuttal's gonna be weak as hell.
Let's dig a little bit deeper on the comparison, because I know at the end of the prosecution's case last time, as we talked to analysts like you felt like there was a lot of doubt about the case that the prosecution presented. Do you think that doubt has been shrunk now? And have they presented their case beyond a reasonable doubt?
So I will be quite honest, and I think a lot of legal analysts will say this, that there's an extreme amount of reasonable doubt. And that has nothing to do really with the presentation of the prosecution case. I just think it's the fact that they had to present to the jury. You really cannot get around the investigation and the lack of clarity and the lack of professionalism. Despite how many witnesses say it was professional, there was so many issues that no prosecutor, no attorney could really get over, and as a result of that, there's an enormous amount of reasonable doubt. To be honest with you, without this rebuttal, I don't think there's nothing worth it.
Let me play a little bit of sound for you, because during opening statements, the prosecution used clips from Karen Reed's interviews with different media companies, and then they did that again on this final day before they went to rest. So in that case, what do you think about the fact that they opened with Karen Reed in her own words, and they concluded their time with Karen Reed in their own words?
Honestly, that was the strongest part throughout this prosecution case, was strategically leaving in testimony of Karen Reed, because we don't know she's going to testify. She may not. And in many, many cases, you don't hear from the defendant. And this is one of the very few opportunities that the jury is actually going to hear from their own, with their own ears and see with their own eyes, her voice, her tone, her attitude, what she actually thinks. And again, we talked many, many times on the show, consciousness of guilt is one of the elements that the prosecution has to prove. And some of these clips, unfortunately, a lot of defense attorneys are cringing, especially with the last clip that was played today.
Yes.
Because you're piercing into her mind, and we haven't had the opportunity to do that.
Just because we don't have that exact wording, just to say that she was questioning herself once again, did I clip him, could I have clipped him? But I think the key, and tell me more, Jetta, if I'm wrong, is at the end she said, I asked my lawyer, David Yannetti, if I clipped him, if somehow I ran over his foot and he passed out or whatever, then what? And he said,
And remember, y'all, there's no fragments from the headlight on John O'Keefe anywhere. Remember that.
Intentional acts in that second element. So if there's a possibility that she believed that there was some wanton and reckless endangerment, either from the drinking or not knowing or not paying attention, then yes, there is some culpability she may have to face, and you can't take those clips back. What I anticipate will happen is the defense will try to place some context around those clips, just try to see if they can even out the information that the jury's heard so far.
do you believe her when she says, when she's out of court and they say you're going to testify and she says TBD? I think she really hasn't decided.
I do believe, because she has been very, very engaged in her own case. And I think if she knew she was going to, she would have said it from the outset. I think she's a very honest, straightforward person. As you can see, she does not sugarcoat any of her conversations in any way. And I think she would have just straight out said it. But it is a game-based situation. Sometimes you don't know. You have to see how the evidence plays out, especially in the best case in chief. So it'll be interesting, but technically, you've already heard it.
I hope you guys can hear
I
it.
know you've been really uncomfortable with the amount of speaking she's been doing, even now,
Yes.
As she does so on the courthouse steps almost every day after court.
Yes, absolutely. I haven't found a colleague on the defense side that is comfortable with her speaking to the public at all. But as I said before, her story is going to be told either way. It's either with or without her input. How do you dance around that topic? But when you're in the middle of a case, you can't deny the fact that that's damaging to the prosecution. I mean, they could use any of the clips that she used made outside the courtroom as well, inside of the case as it's going on. So it's definitely hard to watch because it's also very raw. There's no, editing. There's no cutting. It's just as it is. So it is a little bit uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, I should say.
More Jen, to stay right there. We're going to get back to you in just a moment. Right now, though, we have NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos back with us tonight. Thank you for joining us, Danny. We mentioned the prosecution has rested its case against Karen Reed in the second trial. The burden of proof is on them. Let's play a clip from Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan's opening statement last month, and then I'll ask the question.
And you're going to hear really now the thousands of sentences. You're also going to get a reaction from the side that, well, the last one of the state police or police is hired to take a look at this case and the data. He'll come in and explain to you exactly what I talked about, how the data from that black box coincides with the cell phone and the movements in the car, the moments before, during, and after the defendant's drawing in their car.
There was the outline of their case. Now that they've rested, did they hit the mark?
somewhat. And Welcher was a good witness. He's obviously very experienced. He was very good at frustrating Alessi when he was trying to cross him and doing that sort of innocent, oh, I'm just trying to help you, when everybody knows this expert's not trying to help the defense. I thought that he went into so much detail about the issue of whether Karen Reed's SUV backed into John O'Keefe's car in the parking lot. We got so much tech on that one, so much graphs and so much computer-aided imagery. And then we got to the second test where he just painted some blue paint on a Lexus and backed it into himself. And I thought the defense correctly pointed out that really all he did was pick the angle and the theory of impact that best worked for the prosecution and just proved that out. It was just another form of confirmation bias. Any sort of variables would have changed the outcome. And there were moments where this expert actually conceded, we just didn't have all the data. We didn't know everything. Believe me, I expect to see that verbatim as a quote.
I want to ask you two things that compare your point of view to what Morgietta, our analyst here on set, said. She gave the prosecution a B+. I wonder what your grading is. And she also thought the prosecution was very effective in using Karen Reed's words woven into their presentation before the jury. What are your thoughts about that tactic?
Well, sure. I mean, anyone who wondered whether Karen Reed was helping herself by going out and talking in a documentary, there's your answer. Because if the Commonwealth believed that this was bad for them, they never would have included it in their case in chief. And voila, there it is, living proof why, for the most part, clients should not be talking to the press. They especially shouldn't be talking to a documentarian because, as you know, the production there is they just tape hours and hours and hours of what you say, and then you can cherry pick anything that's really bad for you. So I don't think Karen Reed helped her case one iota by talking to the press and talking to documentary producers. But I think the defense here did an admirable job. We're going to see their case in chief. It's the prosecution. If I were to grade them, I would say where they fell short was not owning up, was trying to pretend there never was a Trooper Proctor. Trooper who? We've never heard of ye. And I think that was a bad idea. And I think that really came out in some of the witnesses' testimony as they all tried to even evade whether or not he was the lead investigator, when of course he was.
How about that grade, Danny?
I give him, look, a B. Maybe I give him a B, but the bottom line is for beyond a reasonable doubt, you got to do better than a B.
Fair point. Thank you so much, Danny Savalos, NBC News legal analyst. But don't go anywhere. We're back with Morgietta after the break, and we're looking ahead to what the defense will bring to the table.
This case carries a malignancy, one that has spread through the investigation. It spread through the prosecution from the very start, from the jump. A cancer that cannot be cut out, a cancer that cannot be cured. And that cancer has a name. His name is Michael Proctor.
Could Michael Proctor be called to testify? When we come back, our experts talk about that and other people that we could see take the stand. You're watching Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial.
Okay, he's having fun. And right now you'll save 50% on everything. Experience the Sleep Lab at Jordan's.
Welcome to Prestige Car Wash, home with the free vacuum. Did we say free vacuum? And no purchase necessary.
Who's your all-time MVP? We're not talking about your favorite quarterback. Who's the MVP of your life? At Shields Health, we believe it's your mom. No one will ever love you like your mother. And there's no one we love more. That's why at Shields, we treat every patient like your own mother. Shields Health. Go where the moms go.
So, what do you think about the Jeep Wrangler?
Very spacious, lots of open air.
What are you going to use it for?
Promoting international terrorism, saving the world, that kind of stuff.
Sorry, we just saw Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and we are very excited.
Let's drop.
No mission is impossible with a Jeep Wrangler.
Well-qualified current FCA lessees can lease the 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo X4x4 for $259
$1,999 a month. See your Boston area Jeep Ram dealer today.
It's time for the Coke debate. Who's the greatest cashbacker of all time? I earn 1.5% on finger paint just so you can touch the name.
I got 3% on barbecue too. That ain't the only thing that's getting slow.
But you just cash back like a pro with Chase Freedom Unlimited. How do you cash back?
It started with hard work, dedication, and lots of speed. The women of NHRA, fast, fierce competitors that challenge tough competition and win.
It is the fastest run in the history of Top Fuel drag racing.
This weekend, the legacy continues at the New England Dragway with the NHRA New England Nationals. Kids under 12 and parking are free with general admission at the NHRA New England Nationals. Catch them if you can.
Excuse me?
Just let her sleep. And right now, you'll save 50% on everything. Experience the Sleep Lab at Jordan's.
You'll also learn after this incident and within days of one another, both Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, both
Who's
police
this plague
officers, were
person?
both trained investigators, got rid of their phones. Both of them. Shortly after this incident, Brian Albert got rid of his house. The whole thing. Just sold it. His childhood home, a home that had been in the Albert family for generations. He literally sold it mere months after this incident. Dog rehomed, phones destroyed, house sold. We learned that all these things happened shortly after the incident where John O'Keefe was found unresponsive and dying in Brian Albert's front lawn.
That was Defense Attorney Alan Jackson during opening statements last month, giving us an idea of what Reed's lawyers will present with their evidence. We expect that to begin tomorrow. Joining us now to talk about it is our courtroom insider, Sue O'Connell. We have Borgetta staying with us here. We want to quickly highlight what the defense did during the first trial. The team presented all of its evidence in just 2 days, with only 6 witnesses called to testify, and Karen Reed did not testify in the first trial.
So who was at the defense table with Karen Reed? This time, there's attorneys Steve Yannetti and Alan Jackson. Both were there for the first trial. There's also attorneys Elizabeth Little and Robert Alessi. Little was also on the team for the first trial, but Alessi joined the team for round 2. Virginia George was also added. She was an alternate juror in Reed's first trial, but she has not questioned any witnesses in the retrial so far and was only seen in court during the first few days. All right, so now let's get back to the defense team's third-party culprit strategy, alleging someone else did it. We heard Alan Jackson just talking about that in his opening statement. So, Sue, because of that, because he, in that clip, was so adamant about Brian Albert's culpability, does he have to call him since he wasn't called as a prosecution witness like the first time around?
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, you know, we've been talking about the streamlined part of the prosecution. Part of it is because they had to fight a case within a case within a case in the last trial. This time Brennan didn't do that. So these witnesses, Higgins and Albert, Brian Albert, are going to have to be pushed over to the defense side, which is why there are more days that are scheduled from the defense side to make their case. And I think they have to talk to Higgins and they have to talk to Brian Albert in order to establish and introduce the evidence that they're going to allege should give reasonable doubt that these two might have had something to do with something. They don't have to prove anything, remember, they just have to bring up enough reasonable doubt that the jurors consider it.
And Rojada, how long do you think they'll spend on Michael Proctor? I'm not even going to ask you anymore if you think he's going to be called to the stand. We know you think so, right? Everyone's saying it'd be very difficult not to.
It's very difficult not to, but at this point, how much more do you need, right? The prosecution has already mentioned his name so many times with other witnesses that the defense really doesn't need to do much with him, but really put him on the stand and kind of go through, the reprimands that he's had, and he can't deny any of it, right? So I don't think that they'll need much from him other than to put the icing on the cake of the investigation that was clearly poorly done in this case, and I think that they'll a day, maybe a day and a half. I don't think you're going to need much for that.
All right, we have a viewer question we'd like to get your take on. Tom from Winchester is wondering if Michael Proctor is called as a witness by the defense, can he take the fifth?
So the fifth is, when people refer to that, it's your right to not self-incriminate if you are going to testify in a proceeding. It doesn't have to be in court to be any recorded proceeding. But here, he's already been reprimanded, right? So unless he's going to talk about new crimes that he's being committed, that he's trying to protect himself, he can't assert the fifth. He has to answer the questions of about the work that he's already done. So the information is not new. It's actually information that everybody knows about. So unless he's going to stand out and say, yeah, I actually wear a skirt, that's different, right? But he can't just say, I don't want to answer these questions. He's subpoenaed to court to testify. It's probably going to be extremely uncomfortable for him to be there, but there's no Fifth Amendment for him to assert in this presentation.
Okay. Sue O'Connell, Morgiana, thank you very, very much to both of you. It's always a pleasure having you. Thank you, of course, for tuning in. If you have questions about this case, keep sending them our way. The email is on your screen, canton.confidential@nbcuni.com. We'll answer as many questions as we can.
And remember to join us every weeknight at 7 on NBC 10 Boston. We'll have a full recount of the latest developments from court, as well as legal analysis. Plus, this week's episodes will be streaming on Peacock, added to our show on Sunday.
And be sure to check out our true crime podcast about this case. It's the audio version of our nightly show that will catch you up on all the twists and turns up until this point. You're watching Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial.